You know that awesome result that you got in the gym after your first year of training? Well, I'm going to hold your hand when I tell you this, but what you did to get it probably won't be the same as what you need to do to maintain it. And if you've already figured that out, then congratulations. It actually means that you're not a beginner anymore. So if you're stuck at that phase where you don't really know what to do next, you're struggling to maintain the result that you got and you're feeling frustrated, this video is definitely for you. I'm Trish. I've been a coach for 18 years. I've helped hundreds of people bust through plateaus. But in this video, I'm going to share more from my own experience because I'm also a drug-free bodybuilder, competitive athlete, pro card winner, and Miss Universe. And there's a few things that nobody else is talking about, but I think they're really going to help you. Before we get into it, I want to talk about why I think the maintenance program is actually harder than any fat loss or lean mass building program. And that's mainly because the maintenance program comes after the more advanced programs. So if you've just finished a fat loss phase or a building phase, what happens then is you've just achieved this really good result and now you have to try and maintain it, which means you've just lost your North Star. And if you're a goal-driven person like I am, I find it really hard to move forward when I don't know what I'm working towards. It's also hard because your metabolism shifts. So if you've been strength training for a while, you probably find that you're starting to get really hungry. So whatever calories you were on before probably aren't enough for you now. You also come to this realization that there's things that you need to keep doing that are just not fun. And it might be small things like food prepping twice a week, constantly doing dishes, the same boring reps in the gym. You're not making PBs every session now, so you get frustrated with yourself. Also, your favorite foods don't taste as good anymore. So after you've come out of an advanced program, like a fat loss program or a builder, and you bring some of your old favorite foods back in, you start to realize that your taste buds have changed. So you really look forward to having like that Korean barbecue or that cappuccino, and then you get disappointed that you've just had your one bad thing and it doesn't taste as good anymore. This is a big one too, but you constantly worry that the people around you have noticed that you've gone backwards slightly. And it could be something as small as your arm not being quite as lean as it was before, or your abs are not popping as much as before, or maybe a little bit more watery than before, or feeling a little bit bloated. You might have gone backwards the tiniest little bit, but you spend all this time wondering if everyone around you has noticed and they're judging you for it. And spoiler alert, they actually haven't noticed and they don't really care, but it's something internal that we just can't turn off. And this is the biggest one. When you've been doing this for a year, you're not a beginner anymore. It becomes less about learning what to do and more about plugging in the gaps. So there'll be little things that you know you need to do that you're just not doing. And it might be going to bed earlier and getting that extra hour of sleep. It might be weighing and measuring your food to make sure that you're not eyeballing and being too loose with your portion sizes. It might be having one too many off meals. I think it's like a leaking tap. If you haven't got your North Star, you can accidentally and not even know that it's happening, but you start cutting corners and doing things a little bit less than before. And before you know it, you've slipped right back into your old habits. If you do find you're struggling with these things, there is something that I think is going to help. And I'm going to share with you my own personal strategy for doing a really successful maintenance program. I think the key with a really successful maintenance program is not to think too much about the result or the achievement and more about where your mindset is at. I like to break it down into 3 different types of mindsets. First, there's the peak, which is what we do when we're doing an advanced program. So that's phase number 1 or mindset number 1. Number 2 is the valley. So this is where it's kind of in the middle. So it's where we're surviving, we're living, we're doing most of it. Maybe we're 80-90% compliant, whereas peak is 100% compliant. And then the third one is the trough. So that's when we're off track. And we might be off track because we're going through a dark period. Maybe we're dealing with emergencies. Maybe we're on holiday and we don't actually care about being on track. But I think it's important to understand that you can't be at your peak performance all year round. I think as soon as you accept that, then it's easy to just take the pressure off yourself. To be completely honest, the valley is where we're going to spend most of our time. If you look at your goals over a 12-month period, you might spend 1 phase in peak performance, 2 phases in the valley, and 1 phase in the trough. And if you look at that as a whole, you will make progress throughout the year. The thing is, being at peak performance takes a lot of mental energy. We're making decisions all the time, we're using willpower, we're saying no thank you, we're pushing hard in the gym, we're making sacrifices, we're sticking to a routine. So we're aiming to be 100% and possibly falling short a little bit, but never underestimate how much mental energy it also takes to stay at that peak performance. And that's why I think it's important to accept that we can't be there all the time. So you might aim to be at that peak performance once a year, and that's totally normal. You might be aiming to be that right before your competition, right before your marathon, right before your photo shoot. And as soon as you come out of that phase, then we go into the valley. And you might be there for 12 weeks, you might be there for 6 months, you might be there for 2 years. There's no right or wrong to this, but it's important to understand that when you're in the valley, you're still compliant, you're still working, you're still training, you're still food prepping. I think we also need to look at the trough and know that this is a normal part of life as well. I think the main reason why people fail is because they disregard how much mental energy it takes to stay in that peak performance. And I see a lot of competitors do this where they decide that they're going to do XYZ competition, but for whatever reason they're not able to mentally commit to the competition, so they push through, they drag themselves through, and then they hate themselves afterwards because they just feel burnt out. So if I show you these two photos of me here, clearly I was in peak performance at the time and I had the mental energy to put the time and the effort into it. But if I'm being completely honest, before that photo on the left, I was in the valley for a year and a half. My first ever competition experience in 2013 was absolutely horrible, and it took me a long time to feel mentally ready to do it again. I think part of being a good athlete is knowing that sometimes you need to stay in the valley, sometimes you're in the trough, but if you accept that that's just a part of your mental growth and forgive yourself for being there, I think it's actually easier to move past it. And then what happened was, after that 12-week period, I went back into the valley for 6 months. And then next time I hit my peak performance, I actually got an even better result than the year before. So I think that when it comes to having a really successful maintenance program, it's usually more about accepting where your mindset is at. But I think where a lot of people struggle is they've achieved this result while they were in peak performance, but now they're in the valley and they're trying to keep that result. And yeah, if you drop your compliancy with your training and nutrition, of course your body's going to go backwards a little bit. But knowing then that at some stage further down the line, you're going to do another peak performance and you'll probably get an even better result than last time you had your peak performance. That's the thing that's going to keep you going. So if you are struggling with your maintenance phase, this is what I think is probably going to help you the most. Don't actually aim for maintenance. Set smaller goals and break them into phases. When do you want to be at your peak? When do you want to be in the valley? When do you expect you might be in the trough? And regardless of which phase you're in, just aim to be 1% better every day. That could be aiming for 1 more rep when you're in the gym, could be aiming for 1 more kilo, it could be getting the scales out again and just making sure you're hitting your protein requirements, it could be getting your water intake a little bit better. There's always something you can do to take yourself to the next level. Maybe you haven't got that big scary goal anymore and that's the thing that's making you feel depressed. If you're feeling like that, my advice is to actually stop setting goals and just think about the here and now. How can you be 1% better than yesterday? And if you want more examples of how to take your results to the next level, watch this video next.